Welcome to CARICOMP Insider, where high-tech facial recognition meets real-world intelligence.
A $5 million class action lawsuit against Disney isn't about a data breach. It's about what happens the moment a camera scans your face at a theme park gate before anything goes wrong. Before any hacker touches a server. The act of collecting your biometric data without proper consent is, by itself, the violation. If you've ever walked through a turnstile, entered a stadium, or tapped into an amusement park, your face may have been scanned without you fully understanding what you agreed to. That not you just felt? It's reasonable. Disney's parks use facial recognition at their entrances. The lawsuit claims the company posted signs and set up separate lanes for guests who wanted to opt out, but in practice, those alternatives were hard to find, slow to use, and poorly explained by staff. The legal argument is straightforward. If opting out doesn't feel like a real choice, then consent isn't real either. And this case isn't just about one company's theme parks. It's about every business and every software vendor that collects face data at scale. So what happens when the law says the scan itself, not the breach, is the problem? Start with Illinois. The state's Biometric Information Privacy Act, known as BIPA, is the most aggressive biometric privacy law in the country because it gives individual people the right to sue. That's called a private right of action, and most privacy laws don't have one. In just the past year, more than 100 new BIPA class actions were filed in Illinois alone. The settlements are enormous. Clearview I paid nearly $52 million. Speedway paid over $12 million. A smaller company called Viacobal settled for just under $500,000. $52 million, $12 million, $500,000, and none of those cases required a single data breach. The violation was the collection itself. Now widen the lens. California has started building similar exposure through its own broader privacy statutes. According to the New York State Bar Association, there's no single federal law governing facial recognition at commercial venues, so every state is writing its own rules. That means a biometric AI vendor selling the same product in Illinois, California, and Texas faces three completely different legal landscapes. For anyone building or buying face-matching software, the jurisdiction where the data gets collected determines how much legal leverage a plaintiff holds. For the rest of us, it means the protections you have depend entirely on your zip code. The Disney case sharpens all of this into one specific question: what does real consent look like? According to the lawsuit, Disney did have opt-out lanes and signage. On paper, participation was optional. But the plaintiffs say those alternatives were buried: a hidden lane, a confusing sign, staff who couldn't explain the difference. When the alternative to a face scan is a slower, harder-to-find process that nobody explains to you, courts may decide that's not a meaningful choice. And if your child's face was scanned, the consent questions get even more complicated, because minors can't consent for themselves, and parents may not have understood what was happening. This brings us to the vendors, the companies that actually build and sell the facial recognition tools. They're not just spectators in these lawsuits. They risk being named as co-defendants or subpoenaed for technical documentation. When that happens, a court can demand a complete audit trail. who initiated each scan, when, for what purpose, how long the images were stored, and who had access. A tool that matches faces brilliantly, but keeps no record of how or why those images were collected, is now a liability sitting on a hard drive. That's true for a Fortune 500 company running park gates, and it's true for a solo investigator running a facial comparison on a laptop. One more layer. On April 1, 2026, the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that a recent amendment to BIPA applies retroactively. That amendment caps damages at 1 recovery per person, not 1 per scan. Before this ruling, a single worker whose face was scanned 1,500 times could seek $7.5 million. Now the maximum for that same person is $5,000. That sounds like a huge win for companies, and it does reduce the downside for repeated scans. But it doesn't eliminate per-person liability for tools that never documented consent in the first place. The cap helps if you scanned someone too many times. It doesn't help if you never asked. The competitive edge in biometric AI isn't accuracy anymore. Plenty of tools can match a face. The edge is whether your tool can survive a subpoena, whether it has the consent logs, the retention limits, and the audit trail that a courtroom demands. So a $5 million lawsuit against Disney says you don't need a hack or a leak to violate biometric privacy law. Scanning someone's face without proper, meaningful consent is enough. Over 100 similar cases were filed in Illinois in the past year alone, with settlements reaching into the tens of millions. The tools that survive this moment won't just be the ones that recognize faces best. They'll be the ones that can prove, in court, that every scan was authorized, logged, and limited. Whether you investigate cases for a living or you just walked through a turnstile last weekend, the question is the same. Did anyone actually ask before they scanned you? The full story's in the description if you want the deep dive.
Now you know something most people in this industry don't. Use it. And when you're ready to put it to work, caracomp.com. We'll see you tomorrow.